Hello everybody and welcome to Weather on the Go, all your weather coverage. In today's video, I will be covering the tropical system here that is developing across the Gulf of Mexico and pushing across Florida into the Atlantic. I will also be looking ahead here at the severe weather threats as we head through this weekend here, and also looking at kind of some climatology, kind of looking ahead here what to expect for June and the rest of summer here with kind of the severe weather climatology and kind of the windstorm, the derecho type of climatology. I'll be here kind of giving you that rendition here through the video as well. So welcome back everybody. Hope everybody's having a great Thursday morning out there, or rather actually Thursday afternoon now. We do have an investigation here from this National Hurricane Center is investigating an area around here, portions of the Central America here, into portions here of Eastern Mexico, getting into portions of the Southern Gulf of Mexico here. They do give a 90% chance of this forming into some type of system here across the Southern Gulf and the Southeastern Gulf, heading toward the Florida Peninsula here in the next few days. So we'll definitely have to be mindful of that. And it actually does give some area into portions of South Central Florida here of a little bit of a heads up, saying we might have a tropical system starting to develop here. You kind of got to, watch this thing here in portions of Tampa, down toward the Fort Myers area, Naples, down toward Miami, Florida, maybe even Daytona Beach, kind of getting down into those areas. Kind of got to be mindful of the system coming in from the west southwest here in the next 5 days or so, as this could turn into a tropical depression or even a tropical storm here as it crosses into southern Florida here in the next few days. This is what the tropical system does look like here. A lot of convection here across the portions of the the Western Caribbean, getting in toward portions here of just east of Mexico here and into the Southern Gulf. You can definitely see some higher top convection across portions here well southwest of the Florida Peninsula here. So this system is still well off of Florida, but still seeing some effects of some rain showers and maybe some tropical rain starting to inch its way up toward the Florida Keys, into Key West there, maybe into South Miami Beach here. So definitely be mindful of that. Maybe some rip currents here across those areas. Definitely be mindful of that. Not a big wind maker right now here, and it really not really expecting it to be, but mainly just a rain maker. And this will kind of pivot its way to the north and east and the south central Florida Peninsula as we head through the next few days. And that is as the National Hurricane Center gives it a 90% chance of forming into some type of storm as it heads toward the Florida Peninsula into south central Florida and maybe even into the Atlantic here in the next few days to the next week or so. So definitely here, we'll be watching that for you here in the next few days. In general, this is what the GFS model here is showing. The midday GFS model that did come out is showing some pretty heavy rainfall with the system across south central Florida, around Miami Beach area, getting up toward around the Fort Myers area, maybe the Naples area, and getting into the eastern side of Florida as well. Generally, south central Florida could be expecting multiple inches of rain, anywhere from about 4 to up to as much as 7+ inches of rainfall could be falling across this area here. And I know they do need some of the rainfall as well, because there's a lot of dry weather across this area, so Florida is in need of the rainfall, but a lot of rainfall is on the way, so that could cause some flash flooding concerns. And even the European models run pretty similar to the GFS, maybe a little farther to the north, but still generally calling for another 4 to 6, maybe 7 inches of rain across the south central Florida Peninsula here. And this is actually heading through the next few days, so that is definitely something to watch. Maybe even a few inches of rain getting up toward the Orlando area here into Florida as well. Maybe up toward Tampa here and Daytona Beach as we head into the next few days into early next week as well. And generally, this is what the Weather Prediction Center is calling for: a slight to even a moderate risk for flash flooding, especially to southern Florida, into the Florida Keys here. And this is affecting, the Miami Beach area, the Key West, getting up maybe toward Fort Myers and up towards, the Naples area with that slight risk of flash flooding. Also some flash flooding back here into Texas here today, and then all the way up into portions here of northeastern portions there of Washington State, as we have some rainfall across the Pacific Northwest here as well. And even as we head into day 3, this is here a slight risk of flash flooding across portions of south central Florida, with a marginal risk extending up toward the Orlando area, Tampa, Florida here as well. This is going into the weekend. This is for Saturday, and seeing some flash flooding potential. The Weather Prediction Center does put out that marginal to slight risk zone here across the Florida Peninsula. But then as we look more into the contiguous United States here, we do have a lot of severe weather continuing, some lower end type of severe weather across portions of the country here. The Storm Prediction Center's Day 1 outlook continues to maintain that slight risk of severe weather centered on Maryland and southeastern Pennsylvania, southern New Jersey, getting into portions of eastern Virginia, and then that marginal risk zone here extending into much of the eastern Tennessee Valley, into the deep south and the Gulf Coast states, as well as far westward here as the far eastern Texas. And then another marginal risk zone here across portions of east central New Mexico, southeastern Colorado, into portions of far west Texas here, with maybe some pop-up type of pulse type of storms that kind of pop up for a couple hours and then die off here and kind of rain themselves out as we head into the evening hours here, with maybe some isolated damaging winds and some isolated hail across those areas. So let's kind of show you what's happening here this afternoon. This is the composite reflectivity. You can see some showers and storms, kind of popcorn variety type showers and storms across portions of the mid-Atlantic, getting down to the deep south. And same thing for Florida, maybe some remnants here maybe some here kind of activity from that tropical system potentially here forming into the southern Gulf, kind of moving its way up to the north. And then we got a couple popcorn storms trying to form here in New Mexico. That'll really start to take shape here as we head toward the evening hour into New Mexico, kind of those pulse type storms like I was saying. They kind of pop up for a few hours and then they kind of rain themselves out. But they could, they could be capable of producing some smaller hail, maybe some, medium to large size hail at times, and also some gusty winds. So that'll be something to watch. Wind gusts could be up to around 40, 50 miles per hour in that marginal risk zone. And also across the Pacific Northwest here, don't want to discount the potential for some rain and some showers and storms up here as well across Washington State, getting out into east central portions of Oregon, across portions there of Idaho into southwestern Montana, maybe northwestern Wyoming here as well. And that'll continue here through the evening before all this kind of dissipates with the kind of the loss of the heating of the day. Then as we head into the day two, the Storm Prediction Center's day 2 outlook here for severe weather, with that front kind of stalling down here across the southeast, we have a little bit of that, slowing of that front. We have a marginal risk here from the eastern Carolinas down through south central Georgia, along the Gulf Coast near the Mobile area, getting back into southern Mississippi. Also that marginal risk across the far southern Florida Peninsula into the Florida Keys, Miami Beach area. With some severe weather here, with kind of an eastern loaded type of system here, with that system moving in from the south and west. And then a little bit of higher concern, a slight risk of severe weather across the western Texas Panhandle into eastern New Mexico, and then a kind of a front range type of severe weather setup across the Rockies into the Intermountain West here, with a marginal risk extending all the way up here into Montana and Wyoming, and even portions of western Nebraska here as well as we head into our Friday. And like I said, that tornado risk is not going to be high tomorrow at all here at any areas, but here there is a 2% tornado risk across the south, the southern Florida Peninsula, across the Miami Beach area, getting down to the Florida Keys, kind of with a little bit more low-level spin here and kind of enhanced low-level shear across those areas here with that tropical system moving in. So do want to be mindful of that. Maybe some land spouts, maybe a couple isolated tornadoes across southern portions of Florida into the Florida Keys here as we head into tomorrow. And like I said here, this is as we head into tomorrow afternoon, a lot of that moisture across the Gulf Coast states will be fueling that severe weather threat. Some moisture poking up here into portions of the eastern, Colorado Rockies into the Front Range. So that's why we have that slight risk of severe weather across those areas, with that marginal risk extending all the way up into Montana there, with some marginal instability, some marginal here low-level moisture getting all the way up here into portions of Montana. And that will kind of hinge on, instability. Instability will be growing through the afternoon. We have instability across the Gulf Coast states and that marginal risk zone with that frontal boundary pushing slowly to the south, kind of on the order of 2,000, maybe up to 2,500 joules per kilogram. Not much instability across South Florida, but there's going to be enough low-level shear, maybe with some land spouts and some isolated tornadic type of storm setups across those areas. And then as we head to the Front Range of the Rockies, down into portions of the western Texas here into eastern New Mexico, got a little bit of higher instability across those areas in that slight risk zone here, with on average around 2,000 to near 3,000 joules per kilogram, so almost double of what you need for severe weather. And you got that wind shear coming in a little bit as well, to kind of aid in the organization of the storms as well. So as we head into late tomorrow afternoon, some popcorn storms again developing on the Front Range of the Rockies all the way down here into Colorado near the Denver area, getting into portions of eastern New Mexico into West Texas. We got some storms popping up along that frontal zone into the southeast here in the Carolinas through Georgia and into southern portions there of Alabama and Mississippi. Also got some storms here kind of moving in across south central Florida with all that heavy rainfall, maybe some isolated severe weather here there. And this will really start to kind of develop as we head in toward the evening hours tomorrow, and that'll kind of start to whimper itself out, kind of dissipate a little bit with some of the storms across the front range of the Rockies up into portions of Montana and Wyoming, with the daytime heating and the loss of instability kind of losing after the sunset here on our Friday. But some storms may be lingering down into West Texas here around, the Lubbock area, getting down toward Fort Stockton, maybe up toward Wichita Falls, and extending over towards central Texas with time as well, and along that frontal boundary across the Carolinas into the evening hours before the starts here to wind down. But if you live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area or up toward, Wichita Falls, down toward portions of Austin, Texas, do want to be mindful. Maybe a convective system might be kind of moving through. Some marginally gusty winds, maybe some smaller hail, some heavier rainfall, some frequent lightning, but nothing too severe here, nothing too strong, I don't think, as we head into our Friday evening across that area. Then as we head into day 3, another marginal risk for severe weather across portions here of the central plains into the southern plains, from portions of southwestern Nebraska, northeastern Colorado, down through Kansas and Oklahoma, into northwest Texas and far northern Texas, around the Red River area, getting up toward Oklahoma City and portions of Wichita, and then getting up here to southwestern Nebraska as well. Also a very small marginal risk zone across the Florida Keys, far south Florida, just along and south of Miami Beach there. With a continued low-level spin and shear, we could have some isolated land spouts once again down in those areas. But really, in the next 3 days or so, we do have some pretty active weather across the middle of the country, back into the Pacific Northwest, where they've been getting soaked lately with rainfall. That will be continuing here through the next few days. Multiple inches of rain, up to around 2-3+ inches of rain across the Portland area, getting up towards Seattle, northern and northwestern portions of California. Some active weather across the middle of the country with some severe weather here, so some heavier pockets of rain possible. And then you got that real heavy rain across south central Florida, with potentially up to 7+ inches of rain across those areas, from Miami Beach, the Florida Keys, getting up toward Fort Myers, maybe up toward the Tampa area and Naples, those areas here as well, maybe the Daytona Beach area as well in the next few days. But as we head into this weekend, we're going to see some moisture return, start to build back here to the north, and that will be reflected as we head into Saturday evening. We got some moisture here. We're returning into the central plains and the southern plains ahead of a mid-level disturbance that will be diving down here with kind of a quasi-zonal flow pattern here into the upper levels of the atmosphere, where we kind of don't have much, amplification. We don't have a big ridge. We don't have a big trough. We just kind of have, kind of Pacific type of air. So we kind of have a Pacific train type of air coming in right off the eastern Pacific. But we do have a little bit of a Gulf moisture feed, so we could have a little bit of some instability growing in the middle of the country as we head into early next week, especially when we get dew points well into the 60s to low to mid 70s across the southern and central plains into the Missouri Valley. Maybe some severe weather might be popping up here as we head into early next week. Too early to call, but we do think maybe some lower end severe weather threat that could develop here as we head towards Sunday, maybe even to Monday here as we head to next week, as all this moisture and instability starts to kind of linger around, with multiple disturbances here in the mid-level starting to come in off the Pacific Northwest. With all that rainfall in the Pacific Northwest, the disturbances have to go somewhere, and they will go to the east here with this kind of quasi-zonal to, just zonal Pacific flow across the contiguous United States as we head into early next week. And generally in the next 7 days, this is what you can expect. This is where the active pattern looks to here kind of set up, like I said, across South Florida with that tropical system. You got a lot of moisture pooling up here into the Missouri Valley, back into the central and northern plains, perhaps into the Midwest and the Ohio Valley. You got some, a few inches of rainfall here on the way the next 7 days. Continued active pattern with that northern stream jet just relentless across the Pacific Northwest. That will be continuing here through the next 7 days as well. And like I said, I will talk to you about a little bit of climatology here. I found this kind of interesting here. I was kind of researching this last night, and you can see that the Storm Prediction Center's archive page, you can go in there to, spc.gov, and you can see all this type of, climatology. But I did find this interesting that now the severe weather threat did start in the southeast here back in March, and then it pushed off to the west into the central and southern plains here in April and May. And now it's starting to retreat back to the north here across the northern plains, the upper Midwest, and the Ohio Valley as we head into June and July. And that is really kind of climatologically what we expect. Any severe probabilities here just for today's news date here, kind of highest across, the central southern plains, but this is really starting to, the brighter colors are starting to show up across the Midwest, the northern plains, the Ohio Valley, and the Tennessee Valley areas. That's kind of where you expect that severe weather to kind of migrate farther to the north here as we head through June and July, and that should be the case here climatologically, really, as we head through, the next month or so. I also did find this interesting. I hope this isn't too blurry. I did put this in there. The derecho climatology, this is kind of interesting, where you have one derecho every year in this light blue area. This is kind of climatologically where you have derechos every year here. One derecho every year in that light blue area, a little spot up there in Minnesota. One derecho every 2 years, kind of in the lighter lime green type area here across portions of the upper Midwest, getting down to the southern plains here and portions of the Tennessee Valley. And then one derecho every 4 years in this yellow or orange type of shading across much of the eastern part of the country. But I found this interesting that portions of northeastern Oklahoma, southwestern Missouri, into northwestern Arkansas here, kind of the intersection there of the states, you have 4 derechos every 3 years. So pretty frequent here, a type of derecho setup across that area, usually climatologically speaking, and that is pretty interesting. And what I did also find interesting is that this is the frequency of derechos here. This is kind of the frequency of derechos. The brighter the colors and the higher the numbers you can see on this chart or this graph here, you can see that those are where the derechos are most likely favorable for the month of June. So if you can see here across portions of northern Illinois, back into Iowa here, and generally speaking, regional wise, from the the eastern northern plains back into the upper Midwest, and then through the Ohio Valley in June, that is really where you see the most favorable conditions coming together for derechos or windstorms across these areas here. But you can't discount the central plains or even the deep south, the Dixie Alley area, for some derechos in June as well. So that is something to also consider as well. And then as we head into July, you get those big high pressure systems that develop across the 4 corners into the southern plains, and then you have that ring of fire pattern around that here high pressure system, where you have a lot of instability growing across the middle of the country. And then on the northern end of that instability, you got all that here, that jet stream pushing in right over top of that high pressure system. And you got a lot of your wind shear across those areas. And that's where you have that organization of the organized MCSs or mesoscale convective systems that then turn into long-lived derechos here that start into portions of the eastern Dakotas, go through Minnesota, drop through Wisconsin, northern Illinois, and then through portions of the Ohio Valley. And that's climatologically speaking more favorable here into those areas into July, so that is something to watch as well. This year is starting to kind of I've heard people say this year is starting to kind of look similar to 2011 and 2012 summer. So if you remember that, 2012 did have a damaging derecho that started into portions of Iowa, went through north central Illinois and all the way through the mid-Atlantic and off the East Coast. So that was a very long-lived derecho, and that could play out once again, potentially as we head into July this year, but things can also change. And then as you head into August as well, that's kind of the favorable zone here from southern Wisconsin, eastern Iowa, northern Illinois, and through portions of north central Indiana, and really through the northern Ohio Valley, the southern Great Lakes toward the mid-Atlantic. That's kind of where you can expect the more favorable conditions for derechos to form into the month of August here as well. But looking at kind of the progressive derechos, there's 2 types of derechos here that affect the United States. There's one type that's called serial derechos, and those usually are not effective during the warm season. Those are usually, serial derechos usually happen during the winter months, the fall months, kind of the cool season, if you will. But we do have another term. It's called progressive derechos, and those are the most intense derechos usually that form, and those are the ones that produce, those 100+ mile per hour wind gusts that move very quickly here. These could be the derecho events that, that's why they're called progressive. They move very quickly from west to east or northwest to southeast or wherever they're forming from north to south, and they really move quickly, and that's where you get those really strong winds on the leading edge of the storm. So kind of what I'm saying here is that the progressive derecho events here, generally from the months of May through August, this is kind of data from 1996 to 2013, where most of the derechos happen, and this is an accumulative of how many derecho events they've had. Here in northern Illinois, around the Rockford, Illinois area, getting down toward Peoria, they've had derecho events here from 1996 to 2013, accumulative up to around 40 in those areas. So a lot of derecho events across northern Illinois into southern Wisconsin and even into the Ohio Valley here, where they have 20s and 30 type of events from 1996 to 2013. So I did kind of want to show you that. This is kind of interesting to me, how now that we're getting into the derecho season here, it's kind of raising your awareness here of the potential of some windstorms here as we're kind of getting away from the tornado outbreak type stuff, because usually in the summer you have wind shear that is less, so you have more subtle type of disturbances, and that could favor these progressive derechos across this type of the country, from the northern plains, the upper Midwest, the southern Great Lakes, the Ohio Valley, into portions here of the Mid-Atlantic as well. But I don't want to discount, the central and southern plains and the Dixie Alley still could have derechos here during the summer. It's just less favorable with that very hot, high pressure across those areas dominating through much of the summer months. You can also follow me on Twitter at hweather420 here as well. Give me a follow on Twitter. I do post a lot of weather-related content on there as well. I'll be more active on Twitter here the next few weeks and so, and just going forward, I'll be very active on Twitter. So do give me a follow here at hweather420 here on Twitter. I'll be posting, awesome, interesting weather-related content, stuff you'll love. So I'll definitely be doing that in the next few days, and just kind of moving along here in the future as well. And also do be sure to like my video here, give me a nice thumbs up, leave any comments, questions below, and remember to subscribe to my YouTube channel here as well, as I'm trying to hit my goal of 200 YouTube subscribers. So do please help me out there, and we'll pass all the information that I can bring along in the next few months here as well, and moving forward. So thank you for watching my video, and I hope everybody has a great Thursday out there.